What up, kids? My name is Logan, and we are back. Finally, it's been a long time due to the holidays. I hope you guys enjoyed your holidays and the new year. First video of 2020, and it's not FSU, surprisingly. It's actually a video that I did a bunch of research on. And before I begin, Ravens fans, I do apologize for this video. You won't like this video. Just hear me out for a second. I was making my own personal predictions on who was going to win Super Bowl 54, and to my surprise, I had the Ravens losing the Super Bowl after beating the Patriots. I had them losing to New Orleans in an instant classic in Miami. You can say it's my Saints fans bias, but I believe Reese will finally get it done and get his second Super Bowl title. Then it got me thinking, let's be honest, Lamar Jackson is going to win MVP. All right, his numbers are incredible. It's undoubtedly the best performance of any player this year. Lamar threw for 3,127 yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 picks, 66.1 completion percentage with a QBR of 81.1. Those numbers are incredible without mentioning his 1,206 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, average gain of 6.9 with a 14-2 record this year. These stats are ridiculous, man. Once in a generation kind of season. So the question looms, how in the heck do I count out the Baltimore Ravens? Well, I don't know. I just don't have that feeling. But it got me thinking on, man, MVP Lamar not going to win the Super Bowl. MVP Mahomes didn't even get there. MVP Brady lost to Nick Foles. Matt Ryan blew 20. Wait, when was the last time a player won MVP and Super Bowl in the same year? It got me thinking. And apparently it's been a while. The last time a team won the Super Bowl led by the league's MVP was all the way back in Super Bowl 34. If that game rings a bell, it was the one-year short game where the St. Louis Rams, led by MVP Kurt Warner, where they beat the Tennessee Titans 23-16, or more famously, by one single yard. That was back in the 1999-2000 NFL season, which is crazy. That's 20 years ago for this regular season. 19 MVPs later, we haven't seen it since that legendary game. Let's get into a deep dive on why this hasn't occurred in Super Bowl 34. Back in 2000 and 2001 season, just 2 seasons after being traded from the Indianapolis Colts, running back Marshall Faulk won his one and only MVP of his legendary career. Faulk ran for 1,359 yards and 18 touchdowns, but Faulk was effective in the passing game, catching for over 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. However, in the NFC wildcard round, the defending Super Bowl champs lost at the Super Bowl against New Orleans 31-28. Falk, who ran for 220 yards against the Saints in the regular season, was held to just 24. The Baltimore Ravens would win their first Super Bowl against the New York Giants 34-7 in one of the most dominant playoff runs in the NFL. In 2001-2002, Kurt Warner won his second MVP this year. Yes, the last 3 seasons, the Rams would win 3 MVP awards with 2 different players. It's crazy. Warner threw 36 touchdowns as well as career highs in completion percentage and passing yards, which he threw for 4,830. The big story of this year was the Rams revenge tour. The Rams clinched the #1 seed in the NFC. They dominated Favre's Packers in the divisional round, and they beat the Eagles by 5 in the NFC Championship. However, this year changed from the revenge of the Rams to the emergence of the sport's greatest dynasty, the New England Patriots. The 2-seeded Patriots barely beat the Raiders in the controversial tuck rule game, then beat the Steelers on the road 24-17 in the AFC Championship game. In Super Bowl 36, the New England Patriots were up 17-3 going into the third quarter. Although the Rams outgained the Patriots 127-267 total yards, New England forced 3 turnovers, which turnovers would help you a lot in this case. After a holding penalty in the fourth quarter negated a Patriots fumble return for a touchdown, Warner scored a 2-yard touchdown run, and then later threw a 26-yard touchdown pass to tie the game 17-17 with a minute and third remaining. Without any timeouts, Brady led his team down the field to set up kicker Adam Vinatieri's game-winning 48-yard field goal as time expired. Just a crazy way to start off a dynasty. The next year, 2002-2003, one of the most surprising and forgettable winners in MVP history, 37-year-old Rich Gannon, in his last full season, threw for 4,700 yards and 26 touchdowns for the Oakland Raiders. It's crazy. Rich Gannon. Nothing too exciting really happened this year until Super Bowl 37, when the Oakland Raiders faced off against their previous head coach, John Gruden, and his Tampa Bay Buccaneers, also nicknamed the Pirate Bowl. Yes, people, this was a Super Bowl. But to put it into context, after the previous season, Gruden was a part of a rare coach trade where the Bucks traded their 2002 and 2003 first-round picks and compensations for John Gruden. After a first-quarter field goal by Raiders kicker Sebastian Janikowski, former FSU Seminole, the Buccaneers scored 34 unanswered points and winning the game 48-21. Rich Gannon threw for a Super Bowl record 5 interceptions, 3 of which were pick sixes. That's a sad way to end off an MVP year. In 2003, 2004, now what's better than one MVP? Two MVPs. Yeah, this season marked the only time where two players shared the MVP award. Those players were Steve McNair of the Tennessee Titans, who was the first ever African American quarterback to win the award, and Peyton Manning of the Indianapolis Colts, his first of his career. McNair passed for 3,215 yards and 24 touchdowns. Manning threw for 4,267 yards and 29 touchdowns. I believe Manning should have just outright won this award. Though in the AFC playoffs, both fell to the curse of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. The only time where uh, a team beat two MVPs in one playoff. No, it will never be repeated ever again. New England would beat Tennessee 17-14 in the divisional round before beating the Colts 24-14 in the AFC Championship. The 2004 AFC Championship would be the first playoff rivalry game of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. The story of the season was about how the Carolina Panthers went from 1-15 to being NFC champions in 2 years. This is like if the Browns would went to the Super Bowl this year after going 1-31, you know, those 2 seasons, and they were so close, right? And you know where else was close? The Carolina Panthers. Anyway, this game would end just like Brady's first Super Bowl, a last-second field goal by Adam Vinatieri. I'm sorry, Panthers fans. In 2004-2005, Peyton Manning would win his second MVP a year after his first. Manning dramatically improved his numbers with 4,557 yards and 49 touchdowns, all with less throws than last year. In the AFC wildcard game against the Denver Broncos, a determined Manning went for 27 for 33, 457 yards, which is the second most in a playoff game, and 4 touchdowns. Manning was the best player in the world at this time, plus the Colts would end up going to New England, where Manning would get absolutely shut down. Manning threw for 238 yards and an interception. New England held the Colts to a 38 yards rushing, forcing 3 turnovers. Patriots would win 20-3 and beat the Steelers on the road 41-27. Then they beat the Eagles in a much-forgotten Super Bowl 24-21. Fun fact, that game was played in Jacksonville, which is also pretty forgettable. Even people in Jacksonville forget that happened. 2005-2006, this is a truly forgotten running back in Shaun Alexander and a truly forgotten season. In 2005, Alexander pulled off arguably the greatest single-season performance ever by a running back in NFL history at the time. Alexander ran for 1,880 yards and 27 rushing touchdowns. Sad to see how the rest of his career went after this, but we shouldn't forget how great he was when he was. Everyone predicted the Seahawks to run through the NFC, which they did. The 13-3 number 1 seed beat the 6-seeded Redskins 20-10, and then beat the 5-seed Carolina Panthers 34-14. They were to play the Pittsburgh Steelers in Detroit for Super Bowl 40. Steelers, they snuck into the AFC playoffs as a 6th seed. They whooped division rivals Cincinnati 31-17 in the wild card round and upset Manning's Colts 21-18 in Indianapolis. Pittsburgh then beat Denver 34-17 at Denver for the AFC Championship game. And if this game and the Steelers remind you of something, it's that Steelers running back Jerome Bettis made it clear that it was going to be his final season in the NFL. Bettis was a native of Detroit, which was the location of the Super Bowl. With a combination of a close travel distance for Pittsburgh, led Super Bowl 40 to be essentially a rowdy Steelers home game, and especially more rowdy knowing that one of their legendary running backs was going to retire soon. With the help of some very shoddy reffing, Bettis went all out in his hometown as Super Bowl champion. The Steelers upset the Seahawks 21-10 in what some people say is the most controversial Super Bowl of all time, and I agree. In 2006-2007, after Alexander's all-time season, holding the record of 27 rushing touchdowns in a single season, LaDainian Tomlinson was more like, no, let's see how it really is done. LT ran for 1,815 yards and a record-holding 28 rushing touchdowns. LT also covered 508 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And just like Alexander, Tomlinson led the San Diego Chargers to the number 1 seed in the AFC. However, unlike Alexander, the Chargers would lose in the divisional round to the New England Patriots 24-21. LT ran for his second touchdown of the game in the fourth quarter, making a 21-13 lead. But, Brady happened. Scoring 11 unanswered points, the Patriots would end up winning the game. The Chargers had the chance to force OT, yet Nate Kading's 54-yard field goal attempt fell short with 3 seconds left. Manning would get his revenge in the AFC Championship game, leading to the Colts to a 38-34 victory over the Patriots. Manning would capture his first Super Bowl victory in Miami against the Bears, 29-17. Shout out to Devin Hester with that kick return. 2007-2008. In April of 2007, the Patriots pulled off the greatest trade in NFL history. It still baffles my mind they were able to pull this off. The Pats gave the Raiders a 4th-round draft pick for Randy Moss, arguably one of the greatest receivers of all time. I have him as the 2nd greatest receiver of all time. Moss had his worst season of his career the year before, and he was showing signs of slowing down. But Moss would probably have his best season of his career with his first season in New England. Moss caught 1,493 yards and 23 touchdowns, which is the most receiving touchdowns in a single season. But he didn't win MVP. That was his quarterback, Tom Brady, performing in easily his greatest season. Brady threw 4,806 passing yards. Brady would also have career highs in completion percentage, which was 68.9%, touchdowns, which were 50, and a QBR of 88.5, which are all-time great numbers. Brady led the Patriots to a historic 16-0 regular season, giving them comparisons with the 1972 Miami Dolphins, which is the only team in NFL history to complete the undefeated season. The Patriots cruised their way to Super Bowl with an easy victories over the Jaguars and the Chargers. Patriots were looking to complete the greatest season in NFL history. All they have to do is beat the 5-seeded, shoddy-looking New York Giants. And but then again, this playoffs were the summary of the movie Little Giants, one of my favorite football movies. The Giants were the underdogs. They beat the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road 24-14 in the wild card, then beat the 1-seeded rival Cowboys 21-17 on the road, then won another road playoff game against the Green Bay Packers 23-20 in overtime. Eli Manning and the New York Giants shocked the world when they beat the 18-0 Patriots 17-14 in Super Bowl 42. The Pats were leading 7-3 going into the fourth quarter. However, with Manning's 9 for 14, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, adding on the David Tyree helmet catch, this led the Giants with the greatest upset in Super Bowl history. In 2008-2009, Peyton Manning won his 3rd MVP award. In Peyton's terms as a season, this was pretty lackluster. He led the Colts to a 12-4 wildcard spot, but he only threw for 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns. But sadly, the Colts would lose in the wildcard round against the Chargers 23-17 in overtime. The Steelers would face the Arizona Cardinals in Super Bowl 43 after both teams cruised their way to the big game. And man, this game was big. From the James Harrison pick six, the Cardinals comeback to the Santonio Holmes toe tap. This game can be argued as the greatest Super Bowl of all time. Fun fact, in 1944, the Cardinals and Steelers temporarily merged to become Card Pit. That's nice. 2009-2010, Manning would pull a LeBron. Or wait, did LeBron pull a Manning? Anyway, Manning won his 4th MVP, and it was his 2nd time going back-to-back for the award. Throwing a career high in completion percentage with 4,500 yards and 33 touchdowns, though Brees put up better numbers, but Brees would get his revenge against Manning when they met in the Super Bowl 44 in Miami. Though Manning threw 333 yards and a touchdown, the only Manning throw remembered is when Tracy Porter picked the ball off and returned it for a touchdown to ice the game. Brees, for 2 touchdowns, 281 yards, would win Super Bowl MVP. 2010-2011, Tom Brady would end up winning his 2nd NFL MVP award by leading the New England Patriots to a 14-2 record with 3,900 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. But the Patriots would be upset in the divisional round by the 6-seeded New York Jets led by Mark Sanchez. Yes, this was the year when that happened. The Jets lost to the Patriots in the regular season 45-3. This should have been a blowout, but Brady threw his first interception since week 6 in this game. This would be the last time the Patriots would actually lose before the AFC Championship. The magical run of New York Jets would end in Pittsburgh 24-19. The Steelers would go on to face the 6-seeded Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 45. The Packers beat the Eagles on the road, then destroyed the Falcons, which was the number 1 seed at the time, 48-21. Rodgers threw for 366 yards and 3 touchdowns and ran for 1-2. Packers would beat their rival Chicago Bears 21-14 in the NFC Championship game. The Packers would lead for the entire game in Super Bowl 45, beating the Steelers 31-25. In 2011, Aaron Rodgers would have his greatest single-season performance of his legendary career. Going off a Super Bowl victory, Rodgers threw 4,643 passing yards and 45 touchdowns. He had career highs in almost every statistical category. Rodgers would lead the Packers to the number one seed in the NFC. Rodgers would somehow lose in the divisional round to the New York Giants 37-20. The Giants would go on and beat the San Francisco 49ers in overtime 20-17. The Patriots would beat the Baltimore Ravens 23-20 after Billy Cundiff missed a chip shot field goal that would have forced OT. We were so close to getting a Super Bowl matchup, which would have occurred a year early. Nevertheless, everyone was psyched to see a rematch between the New York Giants and the New England Patriots. Will Brady get his revenge on Eli? No, he wouldn't. The game was pretty much a copy and paste of the first Super Bowl matchup where Eli Manning led the New York Giants to their fourth Super Bowl title, beating the New England Patriots 21-17. This was the final game of all-time Giants defensive lineman Michael Strahan. But seriously though, we need more love for that Martin Manningham catch. That shit was dope. In 2012-2013, Adrian Peterson would end a 6-year drought in 2012 when he was the first running back since LaDainian Tomlinson to win the MVP award. Peterson ran for almost 2,100 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. Peterson was just 8 yards away from Eric Dickerson's record of most rushing yards in a single season. But with an average quarterback in Christian Ponder, former FSU Seminole, the Vikings would receive the 6th seed in the NFC. However, Ponder got injured in the season finale against the Packers, so backup quarterback Joe Webb started for the Vikings. Minnesota would lose to Green Bay the following week 24-10. Green Bay would lose to Kaepernick's 49ers 45-31 in the NFC Divisional round, and San Fran would beat Atlanta on the road in the NFC Championship game 28-24. The Niners would meet the Baltimore Ravens in Super Bowl 47. The Ravens beat Indy in the wild card round, then played an all-time classic game at Denver where they won 38-35 in double overtime. The Ravens would beat the Pats at Foxborough 20-13 in the AFC Championship game. The season before, both these teams were runner-ups in their respective conferences. Now, with the Harbaugh brothers at the helm, Jim and John, they would meet in an unforgettable Super Bowl. When I mean unforgettable, this was the power outage game in Mercedes-Benz Superdome where play was pretty much suspended for about 34 minutes or something like that. And after that, the Niners were so close on winning the game, but the Ravens had a goal line stand, leading their team to a victory 34-31 in Ray Lewis's final game of his legendary career. In 2013-2014, easily the greatest single season performance of a quarterback in NFL history, 37-year-old Peyton Manning would win his 5th MVP award by throwing 5,477 yards and 55 touchdowns, which are both NFL records. The Denver Broncos went into the AFC playoffs 13-3 in the number 1 seed. Denver would beat rival Chargers in the divisional round 24-17. The Broncos would beat the Patriots 26-16 in the AFC Championship game. The Broncos would meet fellow 1 seed Seattle Seahawks in Super Bowl 48. The Seahawks are fresh off a tough battle with rival San Fran in the NFC Championship game, which they won 23-17. This was the game that created Richard Sherman and the Legion of Boom. Going into Super Bowl, the Broncos were favored by 2, which was by many other people's accounts too low for the Broncos. But many believed this was going to be the game to send Peyton Manning off to sunset. But Denver just crashed and burned in the most lopsided Super Bowl of all time. The Seahawks would win this game 43-8. Manning threw 2 interceptions in that game and also lost a fumble. Wilson became a household name at the time, and the Seahawks let everyone know that they will be relevant for years to come. In 2014-2015, Aaron Rodgers would win his 2nd MVP of his illustrious career with 4,381 passing yards, 38 touchdowns, and only throwing 5 interceptions. The Packers would go 12-4, but would be only the 2 seed behind the defending Super Bowl champs, Seattle Seahawks. Seattle would take advantage of that home field advantage. Get it? Advantage. As the Seahawks would beat the Packers in an instant classic 28-22 in overtime. Andrew Luck and the Indianapolis Colts attempted to bring back the glory days of the Peyton era. They beat the Bengals 26-10, then beat the Peyton Broncos in Denver 24-13. However, the Colts fell flat. You get it? Flat, like the balls in this game. When they faced the New England Patriots 45-7, which is also known as the Deflategate. 1 year after arguably the worst Super Bowl of all time, the Pats and Seahawks would compete in arguably the best Super Bowls of all time. The team would exchange 2 touchdowns each in the second quarter, and the first half at 14 all. One left shark later, the Seahawks would kick a field goal on the opening drive of the second half to make it 17-14. Going into the fourth, the Seahawks were up 24-14 on Tom Brady, but with Brady's magic and Carroll's spotty play calling, the Patriots would win the game off a Malcolm Butler interception on the 1-yard line. This would be Brady's fourth Super Bowl victory. Also, do not forget that Jermaine Kearse catch. That was an amazing catch, and still one of my favorites. In 2015-2016, Cam Newton would easily have the greatest season of his career, and it looks like he will never get to that ever again. He threw for 3,837 yards and 35 touchdowns. However, just like Lamar of this year, Newton utilized his legs running for 636 yards and 10 touchdowns. Newton and the Panthers went 15-1 in regular season due to the combination of Newton's offense and the Luke Kuechly-led defense. The Panthers got their playoff revenge on the Seahawks, winning the game 31-24. Carolina would beat the Arizona Cardinals, who went 13-3 that year, 49-15 in the NFC Championship game. Newton threw for 335 yards in the NFC Championship game with 4 total touchdowns as well. Panthers would go to Levi's Stadium to face Denver Broncos. With amplified rumors of Peyton's eventual retirement, the Broncos didn't want to waste Peyton's time. The Broncos had 2 close wins with the Steelers, 23-16, and the Pats 20-18. However, they made it to the Super Bowl 50, where Denver's defense would make the Panthers look silly. In a non-competitive Super Bowl, the Broncos would send Manning off into the sunset with a 24-10 Super Bowl victory. In 2016-2017, it was Matt Ryan and the Falcons, probably their greatest season, when they went on to go 11-5 on the season and captured the number 2 seed in the NFC. Matt Ryan won the MVP award off his greatest season, throwing for 4,944 yards and 38 touchdowns. The Falcons were arguably the most complete team in football, not named the New England Patriots. The Falcons looked like the best team in the NFL during the playoffs, as Atlanta outscored Seahawks and the Packers 80-41 in their 2 games. The Patriots were also cruised into the Super Bowl off great victories against the Texans and the Steelers. And, we should all know what happened during the Super Bowl 51. Falcons both 28-3, yada, yada, yada. Patriots would win 34-28. In 2017-2018, 40-year-old Tom Brady would somehow win his 3rd MVP award of his career, throwing for 4,577 yards and 32 touchdowns. Brady led the Patriots to a 13-3 record and number 1 seed in the AFC. The Patriots would beat the Tennessee Titans 35-14 in the divisional round, and then the Pats came back from a 20-10 deficit to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 24-20 in the AFC Championship game. Yes, I still have nightmares about that game. Hashtag Miles Jack wasn't down. The Philadelphia Eagles captured the 1 seed in the NFC off amazing regular season play by quarterback Carson Wentz. However, Wentz got injured late in the regular season, leaving Nick Foles to start for the Eagles in the final games of the season and in the divisional round for the playoffs. The Eagles beat the Falcons 15-10 in a tough home win. Then the Eagles just demolished the Minnesota Vikings, fresh off the Minneapolis Miracle 38-7 in the NFC Championship game, spoiling the chance for the Vikings to play a home game for the Super Bowl, which would have been the first time ever. Nick Foles then would go on and beat the Patriots 41-33 in Super Bowl 52. Brady would throw for 505 yards, which would be the most yards thrown in a playoff game. Foles would get the Super Bowl MVP nod, throwing for 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, and also catching a touchdown reception on the Philly special. And finally, we're at the final piece of my evidence for the Ravens not winning the Super Bowl this year. Last season, Patrick Mahomes won MVP off his first season as a starter in his 2nd year in the league. Mahomes would lead the Kansas City Chiefs to a 12-4 record, throwing for over 5,000 yards and throwing 50 touchdowns. Kansas City would go on and play the defending AFC champions, New England Patriots, in the AFC Championship game in Kansas City. The Patriots would take advantage of the overtime rule and beat Kansas City 37-31. The Rams would screw over the Saints in the AFC Championship game, winning 26-23 in overtime due to bad play ref calling. The Patriots would win Super Bowl 53, 13-3, and honestly the most boring Super Bowl to ever end with such entertaining season. So that's it. I'm sorry that this video is long, but I'm just saying Lamar is going to win MVP, and I know I see a lot of predictions on the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, and I'm not a Ravens hater. In fact, I like the Ravens. I will probably cheer for them for the AFC this year, even though I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think it'll be Drew Brees. Probably. I hope. Please, Sean. Please, Drew. Just make this happen. Get a 2nd ring. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. You'll probably see me due to Florida State video probably in a few days from now. New semester starting up. Sorry that this video is super long. I'm just looking at timer. It's 25 minutes. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later.